Thank you again, Jenny, for all your technical support, and Betsy too. Hello, I want to welcome everyone to our poster sessions. I'm really excited to introduce our presenters. We have 4 amazing posters to talk about today. Each presenter will have about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll do, of course, questions at the end. The first one will be Amy Rohmiller from the University of Dayton, The Games Afoot, introducing students to archival resources. And then Sarah Aisenbrey and Michelle Bodine, who Michelle didn't make it with us today, but Throwback Thursday, Reinvented, a communications and archives collaboration. They're from the Sisters of the Precious Blood. And then we'll finish up with Kim Hoffman and Rachel Makarowski from Miami University with Preserving Our Connections, Crafting Instruction, Opportunities from Serendipitous Encounters. I turn it over to the presenters.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the poster session today, and especially doing it over your lunch hour. I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully that worked. Yep. And you can all see my poster. I am going to talk about how we in the University Archives and Special Collections at the University of Dayton have started gamifying some of our programs and then the impacts that that has had on us. We are really lucky at UD that our library programs are all a part of, it's called Aviate here, but it's the residential curriculum, and students are forced to attend if they want a housing point, which will help them get better housing in the future for the next year. So we never have an attendance problem, but we decided to start incorporating some games into our programming as a way to increase student engagement with the programs and our collections. And because gamifying is a great way to appeal to a variety of learning styles, we were giving them the opportunity to really get hands-on and interact with our learning objectives, with the collections, and with us. And hopefully by doing that, by presenting the information, often in more than one way, then it would stick. I mentioned that all of these programs are part of our residential learning curriculum. I don't want to go too much into them, especially if you were in the session presented by some of my colleagues yesterday. I know they talked a lot about Aviate and gave some statistics to it. But the takeaway is that the programs have to tie in with one of the residential curriculum learning goals. And then probably most importantly for us, the programs are also required to include a hands-on element of some kind. And then the collections that we have highlighted through our games have been really diverse and varied, which is great. We've been able to incorporate everything from university records, departmental records, to our photograph collection. We have a memorabilia collection. We have a variety of student publications, and we've really been able to show off the strengths of our special collections. We have some significant sports history collections, some congressional papers, and some really great journalism collections, which if you were able to attend our highlights tour yesterday, you have been introduced to some of them. And wow, I am just plugging everything at this conference, I guess. The first game that I want to highlight is our university history scavenger hunt. And this was actually our first venture into a purely online program. It debuted in fall 2020, right when the students were coming back to campus and right when campus was actually going back into kind of a modified lockdown because there was a big COVID outbreak among the undergraduate students. So this was a way that we wanted to give them something to do while they were in their dorm rooms and hopefully have some fun. The game mechanism was that they had to unlock those locks you see by correctly answering university history questions. And our goal with this one was to familiarize students with university history, some things that they pass every day and may not think that much about, as well as introduce them to us and the collections that we had available digitally through our institutional repository because we knew in the fall, at least, that at least for the first 6 weeks, classes were going to be all online, and we were open by appointment only. So we really wanted to familiarize them with how they could use university archives without necessarily having to do so in person. The tools we used were pretty simple. We used the Google form. I found this really great online website called flippity.net that not only has this scavenger hunt template, but a variety of online game templates of all different kinds. You can make a Jeopardy-like game. You can do matching. There's a board game generator. If you can think of something that could be interactive online, flippity.net has it, and it's really great. It's really easy to use. You fill out a Google sheet and press a button, and then Flippity generates your game. And then the resources that we used from the collections were our website and our digital collections. The next one, What's in Special Collections, was our first venture into gamifying. This one is really, really simple. We gave the students a bunch of pictures and had them sorted into which special collection that it belongs. So University Archives is one of 3 special collections on UD's campus. So we did this one in collaboration with the other 2, the U.S. Catholic Special Collection and the Marian Library. And we actually did this one as part of student orientation in fall 2019 as part of the program that we call Rochella that introduces all new students to the library as a whole. All the students had to do, like I said, was just sort images that we gave them and a quick definition of what each special collection was into the collection that it belonged in. We did this one physically because we could be in person at that point. So we had 2 magnetized versions and a laminated set that we did on a table. But this is one of those ones that would be really easy to move online with Flippity. And I'm sure there are other matching game templates out there. And all we needed for this one was just images of our collection items, which we have a ton of on hand already. And then the last one is our fantasy baseball draft, which was part of our diversity in baseball program, which I know if you were in that session yesterday, that my coworker Christina talked about how we used our collections to introduce students to how diversity, and specifically diversity in baseball, makes things better. And this was one of the activities that we used to do that. We are really lucky and have a significant collection of baseball cards that covers basically every player from the 1890s up through about the 1960s or so. And so we compiled all of our baseball cards and used the baseball reference website, which is like the encyclopedia or Bible of baseball stats, to create a draft packet. And then the students were divided into teams, and they were to use their draft packet to collaboratively draft the best team they could while competing against all the other teams in the room for who would get the best team. And the trick was that the more diverse your team ended up being, really and truly, the higher your team's score ended up being, which was really an easy way to drive home the positive impact that integrating baseball had on the game and on society. So the impact that this has had, probably one of the biggest ones, I think, has been increased awareness of us and of the institutional repository. You can see the graphs there on the right show that interest in the institutional repository at least spiked over the month that we were running the scavenger hunt program. Those big peaks of downloads are when we were sending them to the institutional repository and they had to look at flyer news and the yearbook. So they were following the hints that we provided, and they were getting some exposure to our digital collections and the institutional repository. About 1,000 students did the scavenger hunt. Most students in the entering class in 2019, I think, ended up playing what's in special collections. So we know that they have at least heard of us. And it has come back in some of our instruction sessions that we've done that my favorite anecdote is I was doing a consultation with a student for a research paper, and he was just talking about how he did this scavenger hunt aviate thing, and he was flipping through the yearbook and he stumbled on this topic that wasn't even one that we had asked him about on the scavenger hunt. It was just something he had seen in one of the yearbooks that sparked his interest. So we increased awareness of us, and we helped him with a paper topic, which was awesome. And we really helped also increase the awareness of things on campus and of university history. Most buildings here, like they are most places, are named after prominent people in the university. And we really tried to highlight some of that. Probably one of my other favorite comments was our soccer field is named Bodine Field. It's named after the legendary football coach, Harry Bodine, who also at one point was involved in running the KKK off of campus in the 1920s with his football team. And that was a question on the scavenger hunt. And at the end, we asked them what they liked and what they learned. And the best response ever was that they learned that Harry Bodine was a cool ass dude, and no wonder we named the field after him. It was great. And then the students also took things and have requested similar history programs that they really want to know more about the buildings. So we have things like that in development. So our lessons learned is that games are really, really popular. On our end, we learned that keeping it as simple as possible is better for everybody. The scavenger hunt seems like a really simple mechanism, but everybody enjoyed it, and it had to be easy enough for me to do and to manage on the back end. The fantasy baseball draft was a ton of time and complication on my end up front. It was totally worth it. But if there was a way to simplify the preparation that went into it, that would be ideal. All of these involved some kind of time investment up front, but the good thing is that once they've been created, they're really easy to adapt. You can just adapt your template or adapt your images to any number of different scenarios. I feel like this is a common theme. Free templates abound out there. You never really have to reinvent the wheel for anything. I stumbled upon Flippity because I knew that somebody had to have had this idea somewhere ahead of me. And lo and behold, they did. So yeah, just never reinvent the wheel. And then like I touched on with the time investment up front, like now that we've created them, we can adapt them for multiple uses. The scavenger hunt especially was then adapted into another orientation program for transfer students in the spring semester that just finished. We can adapt our sort game to all kinds of different applications. The baseball draft has actually been used in a sports and literature class. So we aren't limited to how we deploy these. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I will pass it over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Aisenbrey. I'm the archivist for the Sisters of the Precious Blood in Dayton, Ohio. And as Bill said, our communications coordinator, Michelle, she was supposed to be with me today, but unfortunately she had a family emergency last minute. So I'm going to be presenting for both of us. So please be patient with me. I'm going to kind of intermingle what both of us were going to say. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Bill. Okay. So this is Throwback Thursday Reinvented, a communications and archives collaboration. So what Michelle and I have worked on since 2019 is creating Throwback Thursday posts. So you've seen those, I'm sure, on many archives Facebook pages. But we wanted to do something a little bit different. So this poster gives an example of how we do Throwback Thursday posts, and also something new that we decided to implement late in 2019. So we do Throwback Thursday posts every week. We originally were doing them every other week, but because of how popular they are on the Sisters of the Precious Blood Facebook page, we did decide to do them every week. So the process for this first is I choose the photos and send them to Michelle. So I choose photos based on a few different criteria. Most of the time it's popularity based on how other Throwback Thursday posts have done. So the photo that you're looking at in step one, that's a photo of a sister at Regina High School in Norwood, so around Cincinnati area in Ohio, and she is teaching home economics. And so the Regina High School posts are very, very popular. There's a really large alumni contingent from there. So what Michelle does is she will reduce the size and resolution of the original photo and watermark it with our logo. And this is something that helps to prevent any type of lifting the photo from the website. So even if you did try to blow it up larger, you wouldn't get a very good resolution. And then she saves the photos as a JPEG with _FB at the end of the file name, just so that we know that this photo is going onto Facebook. Now, the next thing that we do is step two. We add text and hashtags and post it on the Sisters of the Precious Blood's Facebook page. And so you can see that the caption is there with hashtag TBT and hashtag Regina HS. We made that hashtag just based on the ease of it. We thought that it was pretty self-explanatory. Now, because posts like this one are, like I said, very popular, we decided to make some groups. So for Regina, we have a Regina High School alumni group, and you can see that this is a private group. So we did this because we wanted alumni to feel secure and safe with touching base with each other, talking about their memories in a space where they may not be able to get to do that anywhere else. So we have the Regina High School alumni group. We also have a group for San Luis Rey, which is in California, one for Our Lady of Good Counsel, which was in Cleveland, and then our newest group is Fatima High School, which was in Dayton, Ohio. And so these groups all have, Regina has the highest with 226 members. I think it's gone up since we made this poster. But we do have up to 50 to 90 in the other groups. And so what we do is when we post a Throwback Thursday post that is in the same category as the group. So with this one, Regina High School, we share the post from the Sisters Facebook page, the Regina High School alumni group page created by us. And so you'll see that the banner photo is also an archival photo. And then the color of the banner here, we also try to make that the school colors when possible. So some of them are red, some are white, just to kind of give it that feel. Now, we chose these groups based on several factors. One of them is popularity. So if the Facebook posts from Regina High School were getting really high likes and engagement, then we decided to make that into a group. So the Cleveland group has the fewest members, but we did see that people were really enjoying the Facebook posts from Cleveland. So we decided to make it into a private group. And we found that these groups also get really high engagement as well. And several of these groups have met for physical reunions in the past. So we knew that there was interest in having a more dedicated space for them to talk and meet. And then a lot of sisters are on Facebook, believe it or not. And so a lot of them are also members of these groups. So they're able to talk with their former students or with other sisters and increase the engagement there. And we advertise these groups on the Facebook page. We also have a Twitter. We don't get as much engagement from the Twitter as we do from Facebook. So we really focus on the Facebook page. Now, the last step here is that Michelle will check the stats in Publishing Tools or Business Suite of the Sisters Facebook page. So you can see here, this is a screenshot of from Publishing Tools. Michelle said that they are getting rid of Publishing Tools soon and they want you to use Business Suite. So some of your stats may look different from what we have here, but that's just because Facebook is kind of in a transition phase. So you can see that we capture the engagement, and then this is how we decide what new posts to use for Throwback Thursday, and also what new groups to make. And yeah, so we've seen really good engagement from this, and we think that the groups are something that we're going to keep expanding upon, and it's something that we think has expanded the relationship between archives and communications as well. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and
hello. Thank you for joining us. Rachel and I will be talking about our preserving our connections, crafting instruction opportunities from serendipitous encounters, which describes what we did with an unusual request from a student and how we turn that into ongoing outreach. Before we get started, I want to read our land acknowledgement. Miami University is located within the traditional homelands of the Miamia and Shawnee people, who, along with other indigenous groups, ceded these lands to the United States in the first Treaty of Greenville in 1795. The Miami people, whose name our university carries, were forcibly removed from these homelands in 1846. We would like to pay our respects to their past, present, and future elders. So this situation started in March of 2020, a little bit before the COVID-19 pandemic really got started. An undergraduate student reached out to us and described a collection that we weren't aware of before, belonging to the English department, of over 100 books. He felt that they were significant. Some of them had very interesting bindings, but they also had a lot of damage and an unknown history. The student was hoping to enlist our help in hopefully preserving the collection and also learning more about it in advance of a planned building renovation. However, the difficulty was, because the collection didn't belong to the libraries, we were unsure about how much assistance we could really offer, particularly in the form of hands-on assistance or anything that would require supplies. So we faced a little bit of a tricky situation and some ethical questions there. So the first thing we did was try to understand the different groups involved and evaluate their expectations and their interest in this project, and compare that to what our goals would be if we were to get involved. So the student had an interest in the project himself. He was just very enthusiastic, but he also represented an honors English club of other students who were looking for ways to get more involved and also were looking to learn more about the books. The English department was also involved, and we weren't at first sure really what their interest was. And of course, our department and the libraries had their own interest. One of the ways that we established to navigate those different expectations was a reading room catalog that they had previously created, which we used as sort of a central location to communicate with each other. So for ourselves, we realized that our goals were, one, to improve the situation for the books, because that was a big priority of the student and again, of the department, and we wanted to be able to help them with that if possible. We thought that perhaps it might be more achievable for us to do that through providing advice rather than hands-on assistance, but we also did want to explore whether there were ways that we could offer either some minor preservation treatment or even training using outreach as the way to bring that in line with our own professional obligations. We also were very interested in engaging the club members. We had not previously had contact with this particular English department honors club, but they were really enthusiastic and interested, and we felt like this was a great opportunity to build a relationship with them. So as part of that, we wanted to learn what are their interests? What would they more interested in learning about some of the hands-on preservation treatments that we potentially would offer, or were they more interested in collecting, or was there kind of a mixture there? And how could we help them explore those interests? And our end goal, we realized, and sort of one of our biggest priorities was to really make sure that we could create a continuing partnership with that group. So as we were considering all of this and sort of learning about the situation, we were able to establish our ideal outcomes. So this was before the pandemic really got going. And what we were thinking we would do was offer an in-person hands-on workshop that would focus on evaluation, appraisal, book collecting and provenance, and some preservation tips. But we did also consider other possibilities, other situations that might have met our needs, including something a little bit more focused on, say, building phase boxes for their books, something more like a history of the book seminar or workshop, a bookbinding or bind-along demonstration, perhaps a roundtable discussion, or more of a preservation one-on-one session. When we considered all of these, we looked at whether any possible solution would tie in directly to their collection and honor and consider their specific concerns.
But of course, COVID did actually happen. So right around when we were arranging to meet with the student and the English department regarding these collections and to take a good close look at them so that we could start planning this in-person hands-on workshop, the university announced that it was going to be shutting down all in-person classes, moving instruction online, and sending students home. So we knew that we were not going to be able to engage with that ideal solution of a hands-on workshop. So we ended up having to take a pause for a few months as we as staff ended up having to adjust to the remote work that we were ordered to begin a couple of weeks after that. And then when we returned, we got back in contact with the student to ask, if he was still interested and his group was still interested in maybe us collaborating with them on providing an instructional type outreach event where we could be able to have a platform to discuss what it is that we wanted. That we both wanted, because we wanted to make sure that their books were okay, as did they, and they really wanted to learn as much as we wanted to teach. So we asked him a few different questions about what the club was primarily interested in, if they were still interested in an online event rather than an in-person. And we also made sure that when we were able to arrange a chance for us to get to see the book collections in person, that we could use that reading room catalog that the English department had made for these books as our touch point where we could make notes on things that we wanted to incorporate into our final session. All of this work ended up leading to, in November of 2020, a virtual roundtable discussion that we had chosen based on its more informal instructional nature, where they could ask us questions as we went along, as well as at the end, that really focused on, for the rare book side of things, kind of a preliminary evaluation of their condition, their value, and kind of just the basics of how to start looking at how much a book could be priced at to see whether or not they wanted to prioritize it for any preservation efforts that they were going to pursue. And then on the preservation side, we covered things like environmental conditions, dry cleaning methods, storage, handling, as well as preliminary box making instructions in case they wanted to try on their own. The event was quite successful. We had a good number of students actually turn up for that virtual event, and they definitely were interested in pursuing this more. However, the student who served as our main point of contact has since graduated. So our next steps are going to be reestablishing that relationship with the club once we're all back in person this fall, so that we can hopefully get that more hands-on event going. And we really look forward to kind of exploring what other collaborations we could have with them, so that we can continue to teach them with our collections, but also hopefully learn from them as well. Thank you so much for coming to our presentation. And I suppose, Bill, is it time for questions?
Yes, it is time for questions. So drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. And I'll start by asking Amy, what the gaming, was it a lot of digital collections, or did you actually do a lot of hands-on? And with that hands-on, did you talk about handling and care and all that kind of stuff?
It was a combination of the scavenger hunt was all digital collections, so there wasn't any actual collections handling. And the same with the What's in Special Collections, the sort game. It was just images of collections pieces. It wasn't actually collections. And then the baseball cards were digital scanned too. So they weren't actually handling the real thing at any point. But yeah, if we were having them use originals, we probably would include some basic handling instructions. Because, I mean, you need to protect your objects, and they tended to get really rowdy, especially in the drafting their baseball teams, that I think without handling instructions, if we had used the real things, there might have been some unintentional handling damage.
And I may have missed this. They came in the special collections and then the archives, or that you went into the housing?
They come to us.
Okay, so you had over 1,000 people come in.
The scavenger hunt was online.
Okay.
So they didn't come into that. For the sort game, they did all come in. All the freshmen come in as part of orientation. So they come in and kind of rotate through the library building. So we were only getting 50 or so at a time. But we did see all of them in person for that one. And then the baseball one tapped out at 36. I think we limited seating to on that one.
Seemed like it was quite popular, I can believe. So, Sarah, it sounded like that you started with a local project, because you said it went to, there's a group in California, so it kind of went nationwide. And you mentioned these sites. What kind of comments, what kind of feedback did you get from people on these sites and that kind of stuff? Could you say that one was, the largest one was, what, 216 people, something like that?
Yeah, so yeah, we did do Ohio sites and then the one in California. And we have gotten really good feedback on the posts, especially within the groups. There's funny stories about, we post something and then the people will say, oh, I remember this sister, or oh, I remember this class, or oh, I didn't like her. So there are, so we are getting some really good memories from alums that I don't think that we would get without this type of engagement. So that's been a really fun experience to see the people engaging with the pictures on a more private platform where they can really engage with their fellow alums.
That's great. So did it help in identifying any unidentified people, or were all the individuals in all these photographs identified? Or-
So all of the sisters are identified, but a lot of times we'll get people identify the students. So they'll say, you know, oh, this is my great aunt in this picture, or, you know, I went there at this time and I'm not in this picture. Why not? And then someone will say, oh, you were sick that day. So we're getting some good feedback about not only the sisters, but also the other individuals that are in the pictures.
And I'm not sure if you saw the comment in the chat, if you wanted to respond to that. Any, all of you, it was my experience with TBT was that pictures of groups of people, especially alumni, still living, got more traffic on Facebook. Pictures of old campus scenery or buildings from 70 years ago had less response.
Yeah, that's been true for us too. And we have a very specific, as I'm sure most people do that do Throwback Thursday, we have specific photos that we can share based on copyright and age and those types of things. But within those parameters, I always try to pick photos with people as much as possible, especially each photo usually has a sister in it. Within the groups, sometimes we'll show photos of the buildings and then people say, oh, I remember that building. I remember going through that threshold every day and those types of things. But on the main Facebook page, yeah, I do agree that people are usually more popular than the buildings or scenery.
Agree. Rachel and Kim, with this, you call this an English library. I'm curious if you come across any other type of libraries hidden on the campus that aren't part of the library systems or collections.
This is the only one that I've encountered. So I don't know that it's fair to describe it as a library per se, but it was a private collection or private to the English department that was housed in a conference room in their building. So it seems like it was an object of conversation and possibly research for the English department themselves over time. But it just, I don't know if maybe the professors had slowly been growing it. Some of the books had apparently been there for many decades.
Yeah, I recall a little bit from some of the background provenance stuff that I was digging into, just in case students were interested in exploring that, because we did kind of, as we were looking through that reading room catalog, be like, well, we can choose their own adventure towards the end and just see which of these 4 other topics, including provenance, students were interested in exploring. So as I was digging through the provenance, some of it was just from Miami alumni and professors who they didn't donate their book to the library. Instead, they donated it to the English department. So the department was just slowly accumulating that. And I'm sure that there are other departments on campus that have their own libraries that aren't a part of the library system. But it gets very territorial in some ways, because the English department, when they contacted us, were very clear that this was not that they were looking to donate the collection to the libraries. They were very intent on keeping it their own. They just wanted our guidance. So I think that there's a lot of room for partnerships moving forward, where we can continue to provide these types of kind of advisory type services without taking on the responsibility of the collection. And the fact that the student group was super interested in getting involved with that was added for a really rich dynamic between us and the student club.
And there was no discussion of donating all these books.
Oh no.
That's great. Okay, we have a question for Kim and Rachel. Did you bring in examples from the rare book collections for the roundtable or other discussion alongside the English department's books? And for everyone, were there any collection items that you've been able to highlight that didn't fit in traditional instruction in tours before, or were especially accessible for finding aid instruction? Got that? I can repeat.
Yeah, we can take the first part of this question while everyone thinks about their answer for the second question. We did choose some examples from the rare book collections, but at the time that we were doing it, we were still mostly remote. So we had a few things that we had taken pictures of while we were in person to kind of supplement the pictures that we had taken when looking at the English department books, just for the comparative aspect, as well as if I was looking at this book, for instance, this is what I would say is an example of this, because there wasn't an example of it in the English department collection, but it still seemed relevant when talking to them about, condition assessment, collecting, and other things. If we were in person, we definitely would have tried to bring some of the physical objects from special collections into, say, our main classroom area, and asked them to bring their own books that they wanted to bring from that English department collection, so that they could do the hands-on work with that, and we could use ours as like a model.
I do recall that they had an interest in, as we mentioned a bit, improving the environment for their books, and also potentially learning to build phase boxes. And so I did show them some tools and examples of phase boxes from my own collection because I was at home, but also because, they were interested in maybe some simpler options than what we would normally employ in special collections.
Excellent, thank you. Now, everyone got the second part of the question? I can reread. Or were there any collections items that you've been able to highlight that didn't fit in traditional instruction and tours, that didn't fit in traditional instruction tours before, or were especially accessible for finding aid instruction? Anybody can jump in.
I know that my answer for this is yes, I definitely have. It's just in a different context from the poster, which I think is where I'm sticking a little bit in my answer to this question. But there definitely have been collection items that I've been able to bring into the classroom for just general instruction. We actually teach a course every semester for the Institute of Learning and Retirement here on campus. So that tends to be my avenue for getting to bring in things and talk about different aspects of the physical book that I wouldn't normally get to explore with the undergraduate students.
I think for us, a big thing has been, especially during the pandemic when we couldn't have researchers and that type of thing, is being able to digitize a lot of the larger materials. So maps, and we have some yearbooks with some leaves that fold out and that type of thing. So being able to digitize those and then share those either on Facebook or with researchers, that's been a huge thing for us, especially when people can't physically come in.
Minutes early. Again, I want to thank our wonderful presenters for these amazing posters, and they'll be again shared, like the recordings of that stuff on the site. And so I want to thank them, and any follow-up questions for them after that too. All right, and so I just want to remind everybody our next session is Pivoting for Productivity, Adapting Workflows During a Pandemic and Going Forward. Again, thanks again to our speakers, and we'll see everybody in 30 minutes.